Welcome to the Witchy Work Wishes podcast, a place to find your weekly inspiration for bringing your personal witchcraft practice into your business, work, and office. Welcome to Witchy Work Wishes, and thank you for joining me today for a very personal two-part episode on the Crow Spirit. I'm so happy you are here. I am so happy you are joining me. I love everything about this topic. And if you've been with me for a while, you know this is one of the strongest spirits that I personally work with. The reason we are talking about the Crow Spirit today and next week is because the beautiful oracle card from one of my decks got drawn for our Patreon August energy. And the timing, the amazing, wonderful timing of everything, well, it clicked once again. So please join us and our Witchy Work Wishes family on Patreon so you can grab all of the amazing Crow Spirit energy this month. It is full of good stuff for us to work with. So I am currently up in the mountains as this airs on Wednesday the 13th. I'm doing an early recording on both this episode and the second part to it that airs next week because of my travels. I do come home late, pretty late on Sunday the 17th, and that just doesn't give me time to record and post it early for our Patreon family. If you're not used to the early postings, everyone who is a member, even down to the free level, they all get access, you all get access to the early releases that air on Sunday mornings. So I am taking time the weekend before I head out to record this for you so everything just stays on track. I'm not even up in the mountains, and I'm already excited to share the trip with you. So I will do that on the August 27th episode. It gives me time to, come home, settle in, and get the 827 episode ready and get all the notes, the experiences, and mountain happenings converted to podcast format. But please know I am up in the high altitudes, in the crisp mountain air, regrouping, finding my own personal balance, and recharging for the fall season coming up. It is going to be a big season for us at Witchy Work Wishes because Hearth and Hen launches in October. Oh, and I should say again, same with last week, if you hear little baby chick noises, little peeping and scratching, it is because the 3 new additions, the fluffy, puffy silkies, are in their brooder playpen inside my home, in the room that I'm actually doing the recordings in. So they are nice little chicken background noises for us today and next week. Speaking of today, we have part 1 of the 2-part episodes on the Crow Spirit, the mysterious crow energy. If you've ever seen a crow up close, you know there's something different about them. They're not just another blackbird flying around the power lines. They have this presence, this sharp, watchful, almost ancient awareness in their eyes. Crows belong to the corvid family. I think it's actually pronounced corvidae, right? But it's the same bird family that includes ravens, magpies, and jays. And they are all incredibly intelligent. But crows specifically, they are possibly some of the smartest creatures in the animal kingdom. We are talking tool use, facial recognition. They actually pass knowledge down to the younger generations. Crows are usually solid black from beak to tail, with these beautiful glossy feathers that just shimmer with hints of purple and violet and blue when the light hits it just right. Kind of like oil slick wings. They have sturdy legs. They have strong, curved beaks and bright, alert eyes that, they just seem to know things. Now, depending on where you are in the world, the crow you're seeing is probably the American crow. But there are actually over 40 species of crow across the globe, from the hooded crow of Europe to the Torresian crow of Australia. They are highly adaptable too. You will find crows everywhere, from bustling cities to quiet forest edges. They thrive among us, building their nests in trees just above our daily chaos, watching, waiting, and learning. Crows are social creatures too. They are often seen in groups called murderers. Yes, that is the actual term. How witchy is that? And these groups, they aren't random. Crows have tight-knit family structures. They mourn their dead. They play. They warn each other of danger. And if you cross one, ooh, not only will they remember, they will actually pass the information of what you did to their family, to their offspring, 2 generations coming next. Seriously, like they will remember. So when we talk about Crow Spirit, we are not pulling from vague symbolism or random bird lore. We're talking about a real living being that has evolved besides us, beside humanity. 1 foot in the wild, 1 wing in the spiritual. This isn't just a bird that flies overhead. This is a creature who watches from the shadows, who crackles from the treetops, who shows up when you are on the edge of something big, something that you may not even have words for yet. In this episode, we are going to explore why that is, what the crow represents, what messages it carries, and how we, witches, seekers, all of us can begin to truly listen when the crow spirit calls. Before we begin for today's episode, I do want to plug a series I did a couple of years ago with Annika. She's the host of Between Two Worlds. I believe she's equally obsessed with crows as I am. And so back in season 2, which, gosh, that was 2023, we did a big 3-part series on ravens and crows. Now, we did touch on the spirit side of crows and ravens, but I think it leaned a little bit more on the educational side of things. But either way, if this is your vibe and you have not yet listened to those episodes, just head back and take a peek. You'll want to look for episodes 28, 29, and 30 on the Witchy Work Wishes platforms. Again, going back to season 2. Today, it is specifically about the crow spirit. And I would love to start with an overview of crow symbolism in global mythologies because they are everywhere. Across Norse, Celtic, Native, and Greek traditions, the crow appears not just as a bird, but as a spiritual archetype, a living symbol that carries messages from beyond the veil, dances with death, and watches from the edges of power. Despite the cultural differences, a few shared themes rise up again and again, like crows circling a truth. With the Norse, the crow spirit is a whisperer of memory and thought. When we speak of the crow spirit, we speak of a bridge, a being who walks between the living and the unseen, the known and the mysterious. To connect with the crow is to step into that liminal space where intelligence and intuition and shadow all merge into one powerful presence. In the Norse world, this connection is vividly embodied in the myth of Huggy and Muggy. Okay, yes, I know. The real names are Hugin and Munin, Odin's 2 ravens. Hugin is thought and Munin is memory. And I know we just came off a big 2-part episode on Norse witchcraft where I talked about them, but in Norse cosmology, the All-Father Odin was not just a god of war and wisdom, but a relentless seeker of knowledge. Odin understood that wisdom is not won by comfort, but by sacrifice. He plucked out one of his own eyes to drink from Mimir's well, and he hung from the world tree Yggdrasil for 9 days and nights to claim the runes. Yet, even with all of his knowledge, Odin did not trust what he could see alone. He relied on messengers who could slip through the 9 realms, gather secrets, and whisper truths in his ear. Enter Hugin and Munin. These 2 dark-winged spirits would leave Odin's side at dawn, soaring high over the realms of Asgard and Midgard, and even into the shadowy lands of Helheim. They would watch and listen, collecting the whispers of the world, and then, by dusk, they would return to perch on Odin's shoulders, murmuring all they had seen and heard. Through them, Odin knew what no god or mortal could see with ordinary sight. Ravens are often interpreted as Odin's birds in the myths, but crows share that same spirit. They are cousins in the corvid family, both cunning and watchful and imbued with a sharp intelligence. Many modern witches and pagans see little difference, I think, when working with crow spirit versus raven spirit. Both carry the essence of a messenger, a trickster, and a guide through shadow. What I love about Hugin and Munin is that they are not just scouts. They are symbolic. Thought and memory, logic and intuition, the mind's sharp clarity and the heart's deep remembering. Both are essential to wisdom. A crow spirit teaches us the same lesson. It's not enough to simply think. We must remember. Remember who we are, where we've come from, the stories and the ancestral threads that shape us all. At the same time, we must sharpen our thoughts, question illusions, and see beyond the surface. And crow energy is that balance, guiding us to look deeply into the shadows of our own lives and see what truths are hiding there. And the crow's connection to death and transformation really is a natural reflection of its role as Odin's messenger. In Norse times, crows and ravens would circle the aftermath of battlefields, feasting on what was left behind. To the Norse, this was not a sign of horror, but a sign of connection, a reminder that life and death are part of one endless cycle, and that wisdom often comes from facing the uncomfortable truths of existence. In a more modern spiritual sense, I think the crow spirit calls us to do much the same thing. When we see a crow or feel drawn to its energy, it might be asking, hey, what are you afraid to look at? What stories from your past need to be honored or maybe released? What thoughts or memories are you ignoring that hold the keys to your transformation? Crow is definitely not here to sugarcoat, right? Crow is here to awaken. And our work with the crow spirit is to invite both thought and memory into your practice. So you might do it by meditating on Hugin and Munin, visualizing them, perched on your shoulders, whispering truths into your ears. Maybe you can journal with the crow energy, asking, hey, what thoughts are circling my mind like wings? And what memories are calling for me to listen? You can also place crow feathers or black stones on your altar to honor the shadow messenger energy. And divination is a good one here. Use tarot or runes to send out your huggy and muggy energy, asking what messages you need to receive today. We also have the crow spirit in the myths of the Celtic lands, where the stones speak and the rivers still sing in old tongues. And there is a goddess who does not flinch at death. She moves through battlefields with the grace of storm winds and the precision of a blade. She is queen, phantom, shapeshifter, and seer. And she often takes the form of a crow, black-winged, sharp-eyed, a watcher from the edges energy. She is the Morrigan, and her connection to the crow spirit is not symbolic, it is visceral. When we work with crow in Celtic traditions, we are often, whether we realize it or not, entering her domain. Who is the Morrigan, you ask? Well, the Morrigan is a complex, triple aspected goddess whose name really can be translated as Great Queen or maybe like Phantom Queen. She is certainly associated with war, death, but also fate, sovereignty, prophecy, and transformation. In many myths, she is not a single entity, but a triad. This triad, this three goddess who governs aspects of war, chaos, and fate, is usually called Maka, that is the war side of her, Bav, which is the chaos side, and Niven, which is the fate side of her. Yet, despite the battlefield being like her altar, the Morrigan really is not merely a war goddess. She is a truth revealer, a death bringer, and a witness to the cycles that forge and destroy power. She does not cause conflict, but she does see it coming. She speaks of what will be, not what should be. When the Morrigan appears, she often does so in the form of a crow, circling above battlefields, perching on the shoulders of the dying, or landing before warriors as an omen. In the cattle raid of Cooley, she appears to one of the heroes, offering prophecy and warnings. Later, back after his death, she perches on his shoulder in crow form, like the final mark of fate fulfilled. In this tradition, the crow is not a passive observer. It is the mouthpiece of the gods, the whisper of fate, and the embodiment of sovereignty reclaimed through struggle. Now, if you see a crow in Celtic lore, you're not just seeing a bird, like you are seeing a goddess in disguise, watching the threads of destiny unravel. Now, one of the Morrigan's most powerful gifts is prophecy, especially in the chaos of battle, physical or symbolic. She reveals truths that others fear to face. She doesn't soften the blow. She doesn't sugarcoat the vision. She warns. She names, and she claims. Working with her crow form as a spiritual practice means cultivating that same fierce truth-telling in your own life. It means asking, like, what truth am I avoiding? What am I being asked to witness? And what battles am I truly fighting? And are they mine to win? The battlefield may not be like literal swords and blood. It may be your own inner world, your family dynamics, your career crossroads, your fears. Wherever there's conflict, ego, and power at stake, the Morrigan is watching, and so is her crow. Now, if you are drawn to crow energy through this Celtic lens, I have some ways to begin working with it. I would say invite the crow into your dreams and vision work first. Before sleep or meditation, just ask, Morrigan, show me what I need to see. May your crow guide me to the truth. And then pay attention to what appears in that liminal state. Maybe it's crows flying over cliffs. Maybe they're landing on stones. Maybe they are speaking in riddles. This is dream magic at its most ancient. A second you could do is create a battlefield altar, not for violence, but for truth and transformation. Include things like a crow feather, image of a crow, black candles, a mirror for self-reflection, a stone marked with your name or symbol of sovereignty. But use this space to ask for clarity before decisions or to honor your personal battles. Another way we can work with the Morrigan and the Crow Spirit is to, channel messages from the crow by writing as if you are actually receiving battlefield prophecy. Try a prompt like, I am standing in the middle of the battlefield. What do I see? Also try writing, like the crow lands before me with a message. It says, and then continue writing. To work with the Morrigan, I think we can also try some traditional offerings for her. Red wine, fresh water, raw meat, and for those outdoor offerings, crow feathers or bloodstone. These all speak to her courage, not to any type of fear. She respects boldness. The gift of the Morrigan's crow, I think it is to walk the edge of what is and what will be. Her crow does not bring comfort. It really brings clarity. It rips through illusion. It sings the song of death so that rebirth may follow. But if you are willing to listen, if you are brave enough to see what others deny, well, then you are ready to claim your own sovereignty. And the crow will not just circle you. She will fly with you. Because once the Morrigan marks you with her feathers, I just don't think you ever walk alone again. Now, we also have in many indigenous cultures across North America, the crow. And it's not just a bird. It is a being of power, mystery, and immense importance to them. The crow spirit is the mischief maker, the creator, the shadow dancer who weaves between the sacred and the profane. To many Native people, the crow is not just a spirit guide, it is a teacher. It's cloaked in feathers, and its lessons are rarely gentle, but they are always wise. We have a theme here going, don't we? In several Native traditions, especially those of, I think, the Plains, the Plateau, and the Pacific Northwest regions, the crow spirit appears as a trickster figure. It's clever, it's witty, it's a little rebellious, and it is wildly unpredictable. Trickster spirits across cultures challenge the status quo, kind of bend the rules of nature, and expose human foolishness. They're shape changers, problem solvers, and sometimes complete chaos bringers. Crow in this role teaches through contradiction, I think. It may steal, lie, maybe even prank, but it does so with purpose. Its lessons are just encoded in mischief. The crow here is also a central character in some creation myths. One version tells us how the crow stole the sun, the moon, and the stars and brought light into the world, gifting humanity with vision, but only after a series of clever and kind of hilarious tricks. In this way, the crow becomes a bringer of light through darkness, order through mischief. It reminds us that sometimes, the path to enlightenment is not straight, but winding and weird. While the raven is often named, I think, explicitly in these tales, the crow is its close cousin again and carries similar medicine in many tribal stories. In some nations, the crow is seen as a guardian of the sacred laws, a watcher who remembers what humans forget. To some Native communities, the crow is the one who remembers the original agreements made between the human world and the spirit world. It flies high above, but always keeps one eye on what we're doing down here. I think in this way, crow is a keeper of that karmic balance, nudging us when we need to step out of integrity. If you lie, steal, or live against your spirit's truth, the crow will appear, not to punish, but to reflect. And the crow doesn't forget. It sees the patterns others miss. It knows when something sacred has been broken. For medicine people, dreamers, and those walking a spiritual path, the crow might show up in moments when the truth needs to just be told, even if it's uncomfortable. When crow appears, it might be asking you, hey, what agreements have I broken with myself? What truth do I need to speak, even if it disrupts? And am I ready to remember what I came here to do? In Native cosmologies, the boundary between human and animal is definitely not fixed. It really is fluid. Crows are often seen as shapeshifters, messengers from the other world, who can slip through realities. And these are stories of medicine people transforming into crows to fly between villages or, to gain insight from the spirit realm. In others, crows are the form taken by ancestors, visiting their descendants to deliver wisdom or even warning. Because of this, I think many indigenous people view a sudden appearance of crows, especially one that just lingers or stares or follows, as a sign. It's not random, it's definitely not meaningless, but a sacred communication from the beyond. In ceremonies, dances, or those rites of passage, the crow may be called upon to help shift perception, to allow the participant to see through illusion and glimpse deeper realities. The crow is the guardian of seeing beyond the veil, not just in death, but in life. Now, as a quick note of respect, it is important to remember that Native cultures are not monolithic. There are hundreds of sovereign nations, each with their own stories, beliefs, and sacred relationships to the crow spirit. While raven and crow are sometimes used interchangeably, some tribes distinguish them very clearly. And in many cases, these teachings are protected and passed down through oral tradition, not meant for outsiders to fully interpret or replicate. So, I want to say that for witches and spirit workers drawn to crow from outside these lineages, the path forward is one of deep, deep respect. We don't claim the stories. I think we just can honor them. We don't mimic the ceremonies, but we can certainly learn from their symbolism. What we can do is observe, pay attention when crows, enter our lives, how the crow behaves and what it might be reflecting back. Now, if the crow is calling you through that native lens, consider the following as starting points for your own personal practice. I would just say observe in silence. Crow medicine often arrives not through action, but through attention. Build a relationship with your local crows. Leave offerings like shiny objects and seeds, or just speak to them as neighbors. You can also ask the crow to show you what you are not seeing. Let it be the shapeshifter in your spiritual life, the one that guides you between perspectives. And then honor your own inner trickster moments. Laugh at yourself, question everything, and let curiosity lead you. To walk with Crow through the lens of, the native wisdom really is to walk the edge between this world and the next, between truth and illusion, between seriousness and cosmic laughter. Crow may not hand you all the answers, but it will crack the door open and dare you to peek inside. And maybe, just maybe, it'll steal a bit of your ego on the way out. We also have the crow in Greek mythology. And here it's really going to be the divine messenger to shadowed truth. When we speak of the crow spirit in Greek mythology, it really is not just a bird on the battlefield or a symbol of cunning. It is a creature of once divine beauty, entrusted with the secrets of the gods, scorched black by betrayal, and forever bound to the truth no one else dares to speak. In Greek culture, the crow is a reminder that messages carry weight, and that loyalty has consequences, and that transformation often comes through fire, or in this case, the wrath of a god. So long before the crow was black, Greek myth tells us that it was once white, a luminous, radiant creature sacred to Apollo, the god of music, prophecy, healing, and the sun. In those days, the crow was not a symbol of death or trickery. It was a messenger of light, a trusted familiar of a divine being who saw all. According to the tale, Apollo fell deeply in love with Coronis, a mortal woman of great beauty. He entrusted the white crow to watch over her while he was away, to protect her, and to report back. But what the crow discovered was not what Apollo had hoped. Coronis had taken another lover, a mortal man, and the crow, doing exactly what it was asked to do, returned to Apollo and told him the truth. What followed was rage. Apollo, devastated by Coronis' betrayal, lashed out. Now, some versions say he struck her down with arrows. Others say he ordered his sister Artemis to do it. Either way, Coronis perished, and with her, Apollo's love. But even worse, he turned on the one creature who dared to speak the truth. In his fury, he cursed the crow, scorching its white feathers black as a reminder that truth is not always welcomed, even when it is necessary. From that moment on, crows were no longer seen as symbols of purity or divine favor. They became associated with loss, betrayal, prophecy, and fate. They became watchers from the shadows, messengers of what others do not want to hear. There is a deep spiritual medicine in this myth for those of us who work with Crow Spirit. It shows that, being the truth teller is often a lonely path. The crow did not lie, right? The crow fulfilled its sacred duty, and yet it was punished. Not for disobedience, but for being the mirror no one wanted to face. Working with the Crow Spirit in this context invites us to maybe ask, where have I been punished for speaking the truth? It might ask you to look at, am I brave enough to share what I see, even if it costs me? You can also look at, what transformations have I undergone because I carried a message no one wanted to hear. This myth turns the crow into a symbol of shadowy loyalty, of divine responsibility, and of the complicated relationship between light and truth. Now, despite being cursed, the crow remained tied to prophecy and divination. It is said that crows were among the birds interpreted by ancient Greek augurs, priests and seers who read the will of the gods by watching the flight patterns of birds. Now, a crow flying from the right was considered an auspicious omen, while one from the left might carry warning. This echoes older Indo-European traditions where birds were messengers of fate, part of the divine language between the gods and the initiated. Now, Apollo himself was the god of Delphi, the great oracle site, and there messages from the divine were spoken through the Pythia, a woman entranced embodying prophecy. Though the crow no longer sat at his side, its essence remained in the very act of truth-telling, dangerous, powerful, and sacred. To work with the crow spirit through this Greek lens is to recognize that, truth isn't always clean, and it certainly isn't always welcomed. It's messy. It reveals betrayals. It burns illusions. But it is also a path to clarity and spiritual sovereignty. So if you're looking to incorporate this type of crow spirit energy into your practice, try, using the crow's energy to channel truths that you are maybe afraid to speak aloud. When you're journaling, burn the page, maybe bury it to symbolize the crow's scorched feathers, some type of transformation through fire. You can also light 2 candles, one black and one white. Ask the white flame what illusions you're clinging to, and ask the black flame what truths you've avoided. And then sit in silence. Let the crow speak. You can also ask your deck, your runes or your pendulum, what messages have I refused to hear? And then let the crow deliver it. The crow in Greek mythology really is a creature caught between realms, I think. Once divine, now grounded, yet never fully severed from the gods. It reminds us that the most sacred work isn't always glamorous. Sometimes it's being the one who dares to say, "This is what I saw." Sometimes crow doesn't bring prophecy. Sometimes it is the prophecy. So when you see that black-winged being perching nearby, watching with its knowing eyes, remember that spirit was once white as sunlight. It's been burned by betrayal, scarred by truth, and made sacred by what it endured. Just kind of like us. All of these creatures, all of these lessons have some recurring themes, don't they? Messenger between worlds. The crow as a liminal guide, always in flight between realms, always watching. Every tradition paints the crow as a creature that crosses boundaries between life and death, mortal and divine, seen and unseen. In the Norse, Hugin and Munin fly between the realms, gathering intel from all of existence and whispering it into Odin's ears. In the Celtic, the Morrigan appears in crow form to prophesize death and destiny, acting as a psychic bridge between this world and the other world. In native traditions, the raven and the crow move between the physical and spiritual worlds, often guiding souls, delivering prophecy, or bringing sacred knowledge. And with the Greek, the white crow of Apollo delivers a divine message, even when it's unwelcome, connecting the god's realm with the human experience. I think we also see the crow cross over with some truth teller and oracle type energy, right? Crow just doesn't tell the truth. It demands that we look at what we have hidden. In every culture, the crow is linked to prophecy and divination or some type of foresight, but not in a nice little tidy, comfortable way. The crow brings truth with an edge. In Norse mythology, the ravens and the crows symbolize thought and memory, crucial components of wisdom. The Morrigan's crows foretell death, not to frighten, but to prepare. In native teachings, the crow and ravens hold sacred law and memory, really, reminding humans of what they've forgotten. And then in Greek lore, the crow is punished for revealing betrayal, a warning that truth-telling is often painful, but certainly necessary. We also have that shapeshifter, trickster type energy that crosses over. The crow really is never just what it seems, is it? It asks us, like, what mask do you wear? What form are you shifting into next? Crows are never just fixed in one form. They transform, they deceive, they challenge, and they play with perception. This theme pulses through each of these traditions. The Morrigan shapeshifts into a crow, shifting from woman to bird to storm. In native stories, the raven and crows often shapeshifts and tricks, using mischief to reveal wisdom. In the Norse, they are represented with that dual aspect of consciousness, showing us that even thought itself can shift and deceive. And the Greek, the once white becomes black, its entire being transformed by the weight of truth and betrayal. We also have a common thread that witnesses death and is some type of keeper of sovereignty. The crow is there when the old self dies and the new self must rise. It is like kind of like the bird of becoming. The crow is rarely just a passive creature in these tales. It is present in the moments of death, and power shifts, and personal reckoning. The Morrigan chooses when kings rise and fall. In Norse lore, the ravens return with news of battles and blood. In native traditions, the crow and the ravens watch death not as an end, but as a sacred cycle. And in Greek myth, the crow witnesses betrayal and is transformed by that truth, a symbolic death of innocence. What does all this mean? What does this mean for us, the modern witch or the seeker? I think it means the crow spirit is not here to be tamed for sure. It is here to shake us awake, to make us laugh at ourselves a little bit, to whisper prophecy, to mirror our shadow, to circle our own transformations, and to demand the truth, even when it scorches. Across cultures, across time, the crow has been the one who watches from the trees when you are about to step into a new version of yourself. It doesn't push you, it sees you, and it waits for you to see yourself. There are some spirits in this world that do not belong fully to the land of the living, nor do they roost entirely in the land of the dead. They walk the line. They perch on the edge. They carry messages between what was and what is still becoming. These are the psychopumps, and the crow is one of the most potent and powerful among them. What is a psychopump, you ask? Well, let's start with the word itself. Psychopump comes from the Greek psychopumpus, meaning guide of souls. Now, in mythology and spiritual tradition, a psychopump is a being who guides the dead to the afterlife, or helps souls transition from one state to another. But it's not just about death. Psychopumps also walk with us through spiritual initiations, deep changes, maybe some ego deaths, and all of those beautiful spaces in between. So some well-known psychopumps, I think, are going to be Hermes, right, in Greek mythology, who escorts souls to the underworld. Anubis in Egyptian tradition, that's the guardian of the dead. Odin, for sure, his ravens, right, guiding the fallen and weaving the fate of warriors. And then in many indigenous and animistic traditions, animals like crows and owls and wolves carry the soul across the veils. So when we say the crow is a psychopump, I think in most of our crafts, it is that spirit that helps us cross thresholds from life into death, from endings into beginnings, from ignorance into truth. All right, let's go ahead and talk more about the crow's role as a death walker, because they really have been long associated with death. And not just because they feed on, carry on, or gather in eerie numbers. It really is something deeper, something spiritual. In many cultures, crows are seen circling the battlefield, perching on tombstones, or arriving just before a death occurs. But here's the thing. Crows do not cause death. They witness it, they escort it, but they are the actual psychopumps who stand at the veil and then guide what remains onward. I think this is especially true in Celtic myth, where the crow form of the Morrigan flies above dying warriors, already knowing their fate. This is especially true in Norse lore, where the ravens, cousins of the crows, report back to Odin with news of the slain. And it's especially true in the native traditions, where crows and ravens carry these souls or even memory, to the spirit realm and teach us how to walk through change. If you or when you see a crow after a loss or during a period of intense transformation, I think it's showing up, not to frighten you, but to walk beside you, safely ferrying part of your spirit to the next chapter. It also comes in the form of death and rebirth a lot with these themes. Don't you think? There is a deeper medicine with it. Cycle pumps don't just guide us through the physical death. They guide us through symbolic death. Those ego deaths, identity shifts, spiritual awakenings, and massive life changes that just shake us to our core. So in this sense, the crow might come to you when you are releasing a toxic relationship. It might come to you when you've lost someone you loved. It might come to you when your old self no longer fits and your new self is still forming. It might come to you when you are standing in the void, unsure of what is next. It's these moments that I think Crow Spirit just circles above, not to mourn what's dying, but to bless what is being born. The crow says, yes, this is hard, but you're not alone. Let me walk you through the in-between. It's the bird that can fly both ways, towards endings and towards beginnings. And sometimes it sits quietly with you while you figure out which one you are in. And you might be actually working with crow as a cycle pump and you don't even know it. Do you feel drawn to cemeteries? Do you dream of blackbirds during times of grief or change? Do you often find yourself in the role of emotional guide for others, walking them through their hard moments? If so, you may carry a bit of that death walker energy yourself. Now, to consciously work with crow as a cycle pump, I say, build a liminal altar. Include dark stones and feathers and candles and symbols of death and rebirth. Write a letter to your old self and then burn it as a, funeral rite and release. Meditate with Crow Spirit. Ask it to show you what part of you is ready to die and what is waiting to be reborn. Crow doesn't rush this process. It really, I think, understands that sacred endings take time. The Crow Spirit as a cycle pump is not morbid or ominous. It is sacred, tender, and ferociously honest. It holds your hand while everything just falls apart, and it whispers, hey, you can do this. It knows that some truths must be mourned, some wounds must be carried, and some versions of you guys, they just need to be laid to rest so something wiser can rise in their place. The crow is not afraid of the dark. It lives there, and when you are ready, it is going to help you find the door back to the light. Okay, let's talk about our craft, our practices, and working with the Crow Spirit and really, being in the company of crows in witchcraft. I think there are spirits that sneak into your life gently and softly, like wind rustling through the trees. And then there are spirits like the crow who don't sneak. They arrive. Loud, watchful, present. They perch just outside the boundary of your home, on your heart, and they stare. Not unkindly, but knowingly, as if to say, I see you, I see what you're going through, and I will wait until you are ready to see it too. Working with the Crow Spirit in my practice has never been a casual choice for me. It is not a pretty totem or a trendy aesthetic. It really is a relationship forged in the liminal spaces, those gray zones between grief and growth, between, silence and truth, endings and rebirth. Crow is a companion, yes, of course, but more than that, a familiar, a spirit ally, a boundary walker. There is a certain energy some of us carry, the ones who walk between roles, wear masks when needed, and keep one foot in the mundane world and the other in the magical. If this resonates with you, it is no wonder Crow has landed on your shoulder too. As a familiar, the Crow teaches us how to observe more than we act, how to wait before casting, how to sit at the edge of things and just understand them before we step in. They are not clingy companions by any means. They are independent spirits who show up exactly when needed. As a spirit ally, I think the Crow walks beside us through that thick fog, that shape-shifting inner world where intuition speaks in riddles and ancestors whisper in our dreams. They don't offer easy answers, but they do offer sight. And more often than not, it's your own vision that they kind of help to sharpen. Now, as a watcher of boundaries, the Crow teaches us how to say no, how to hold our magic sacred, and how to spot spiritual trespassers from a mile away. They perch on the psychic fence between our energy and the outside world, and they watch constantly. If you've ever felt like something was just kind of like off in your space and a crow appeared shortly after, that was no coincidence. Now, crows first came to me during a time of deep transition, one of those life chapters where the ground gives out and everything moves forward in a brand new way. Like, big life moment type stuff. Maybe you've had one of those too. Maybe you're in one right now. But the Crow Spirit came not with comfort, but with presence, with awareness, with the message, what is dying is not the end, but it must die before you can become. This, I think, is where the Crow just thrives in shadow work. When we are knee-deep in our own unraveling, when we are shedding our old versions, of ourselves and we don't quite recognize what's left, Crow doesn't flinch from this. They sit with you in the dark. They help you make sense of the silence. And the Crow Spirit teaches that, shadow is not cursed. It really is a threshold, a portal. And if you are willing to walk through it, they will fly just ahead of you, guiding the way. And we can also tap into our crow magic and our witchcraft practices for some banishing, truth-telling, and spell reversal magic. When you need to cut cords, banish a toxic influence, or reverse a spell that was twisted in intent, Crow's going to be your ally. Not dramatic, not cruel, just precise. Their energy is sharp and surgical. If someone or something is siphoning your power, the Crow Spirit can help you name it, confront it, and sever it. Light a black candle, call the Crow Spirit by name, ask for the truth, even if it's hard to hear. Then banish what needs to be gone. The Crow Spirit will help carry it far, far away, and honestly, not even look back. Crow is a master of omens. When you start working with them, expect your world to become filled with some subtle messages. Feathers in strange places, repeating numbers, whispered dreams. Their language is not always linear. You do have to pay attention. Keep a dream journal by your bed. Ask the Crow Spirit to visit before you sleep. And then watch for black-winged symbols and riddles or sudden clarity. The Crow Spirit doesn't always speak in full sentences. Sometimes they just show you what you need to feel. Crows also see through masks, through enchantments, through delusions. So when you are being lied to by others or even by yourself, they will make sure you know. Working with the Crow Spirit for protection means really calling on them to break illusions, to protect your truth, and to ward off glamorous cast by those who manipulate or deceive. Try placing a crow feather on your altar with a mirror behind it. A charm for seeing the hidden and deflecting manipulation. This is crow magic at its finest. It's not flashy, but it is fiercely effective. The Crow Spirit does not demand your worship. They don't need constant offerings or praise. I think it simply wants you to be awake, to watch like they do, to speak the truth, to stop pretending not to notice the shift inside you. They're not just birds. They really are guides and mirrors and messengers. They arrive when something is ending and something else is waiting to begin. They circle when your soul is speaking, and they stay when you are brave enough to listen. So if you happen to be seeing more crows than usual, if you are hearing their cries echo in your bones, if you feel something shifting, breaking, clearing, realigning, you're not going crazy. I believe you are being called, and the crow is waiting. Trust me, it is not random. Okay, my friends, in the next episode of Witchy Work Wishes, we are diving deeper into the magic and the mystery of the Crow Spirit in our part 2 of this 2-part journey. What we will be exploring next week is what it really means when the crow shows up in your life, the messages, the omens, and the timing that they carry. I'm going to talk about how to work with the crow spirit in shadow work, especially during grief, transformation, and the unraveling of old selves. I'm going to talk about the astonishing intelligence of crows and how their cleverness can really sharpen your own magic. And how to use the crow energy as a mirror for that self-reflection we've talked about a little bit today, and truth-telling, even when it stings. And of course, what it means to be a witch watched over by the crow spirit, walking between worlds, boundaries, and identities. This next chapter is deep, personal, and fierce. It's going to be a space where magic really meets raw honesty. The crows are calling, and in the next episode, we are going to answer. Now, I don't actually have a poem for today's episode, but I have a really personal one for next week. I do have the moon update, though, and the activity that's happening right now. So I'm going to go grab those notes, and I will be right back. Okay, again, the poem about the crow spirit will actually happen next week in part 2. It is a really personal one that I wrote, but I do have the moon update, quick moon update for us, and the week of August 13th. After the full moon is shown in all her glory like she did last weekend, she, of course, starts to wane, shrinking little by little, pulling the tide inward, and inviting us really just to do the same. This is a powerful time in our practices, or it can be if you practice moon magic, not because of fiery expansion or bold manifestations, but because of its subtle, steady release. It is the energy of exhale, of winding down, and of letting go. And don't we need that sometimes? The waning moon, especially in those few days after the full moon and moving towards the dark moon, is all about releasing what no longer serves us. Think of it like the spiritual version of cleaning out your closet. We are making room. We are peeling away the layers. We are softening into surrender. This phase isn't about shining bright. It is about becoming quieter and clearer, just a little bit more inward. It's when we ask ourselves, hey, what am I done with? What needs to be banished or unbound? And what am I carrying that's just not mine anymore? It is a time for banishing spells, cord cutting, cleansing rituals, shadow work, and energetic resets. And yes, this is when the broom gets extra witchy, sweeping not just dust, but that stale energy, those lingering doubts, and that emotional clutter right out of the door. Some ways that I like to work with this energy is certainly a smoke and salt cleansing exercise. You can sprinkle salt across thresholds, sweep it away with intention when you're done. You can burn rosemary, cedar, or mugwort to cleanse a space or honestly your own aura. Say it out loud. All that does not serve me, I release now. Let it be a full-bodied spell, physical and energetic. It's a good time for cord cutting rituals. I like to just write the name of a person or a habit or a pattern on a piece of paper and then burn it. Visualize a silver cord between you and the thing, then cut it with your fingers, a wand, or a ceremonial knife. Thank it. Release it. I like this time for shadow work and journaling. It is the time to go inward, so pull some tarot or oracle cards and ask, hey, what truth am I avoiding? What pain is ready to be seen? What can I forgive myself for? And then let the moon hold you as you write the answers without censoring. Be honest, be brave, be raw. This is a great time for some herbal support. This is the phase where, teas and tinctures are going to be good that help detox, ground, and soothe. Think like dandelion root, lemon balm, lavender, peppermint, even valerian. Brew your tea with the intention of clearing emotional residue and calming the nervous system. This is also a good time for those bath and body rituals. If you have a bathtub, a salt bath is great with some black obsidian or smoky quartz stones next to you, some candles that are lit, and some essential oils like eucalyptus or myrrh, even frankincense. Picture everything negative draining out of your pores and down the tub as you rinse anew. One of the most powerful truths of the waning moon is that shrinking, it's not failing, it's preparing. It's sacred compost. We let go so we can gather differently next time. And when we do this intentionally, we just aren't floating through the lunar cycle. Like, we are living it. We are aligning with the natural rhythm of ebb and flow. And let's not forget, most of the world is pretty bad at letting go. But witches, we know how to surrender with sacredness. We know that death feeds life, that the quieter we become, the more clearly we hear our own truth. So if you are feeling maybe a little bit tender, a little tired, or like something is just ready to be shed, you're not broken, you're in sync. Let the waning moon just be your guide. Be gentle with yourself though, right? Be honest, do the rituals, burn the herbs, cry if you need to, and then exhale. Trust that this release will lead you to your next bloom, because that's the dance of the moon, right? It is the dance of us. All right, now I know I mentioned my travels, but please come back for part 2 of the Crow Spirit episodes. This airs next week, and I did record it at the same time I did this recording, so you guys will not miss a beat. Part 2 will have an early release for my Patreon family. Those early releases happen each Sunday morning at 1:11 a.m. Pacific time. If you're not part of our Patreon family, the regular airing for the general public is each Wednesday morning, also at 1:11 a.m. Now, next week does get personal. I do talk about why the Crow Spirit is so closely tied to me and why I believe the card came now for our August energy. I'm thinking about you guys while I'm up in the mountains, and I cannot wait to share everything with you when I get back. For now, though, I hope you enjoy the waning moon energy. You have a great rest of your week and weekend, and I will talk with you next week. Thank you for joining me today at Witchy Work Wishes, a place to find your weekly inspiration for bringing your personal witchcraft practice into your business, work, and office. For more information and additional content, please visit me online at witchyworkwishes.com. If you want to send me a personal note, please email me at info@witchyworkwishes.com. And of course, you can follow me on Instagram and Facebook. Just search for Witchy Work Wishes.